We've got Nvidia earnings. What did that mean for the AI bubble? We're not sure.
We're entering a virtuous cycle of AI. So AI is going everywhere. It's doing everything all at once. It's becoming ubiquitous. It's almost becoming like electricity.
I'm gonna have to go with two. Actually, I can't do one. Tesla they continue to shock people with the things they're doing, and I love gambling. I'll just caveat that. It's the Asian in me that just is always gambling. Everything is turning us into addicts, and that's scary. Like both of us have kids. Like, do you want your kids gambling on every single thing they can do? That by the time they land, AI will have figured out a vaccine, figured out the quarantine, got everybody together, and decided here's an action plan. We don't need to get it out there in the world. The world comes to us, and we're going to showcase it, which I thought was such a great answer for Google. Like we're gonna integrate this into all the things that already exist, where people are coming to Google and coming to Gmail and coming to all of these places. Rush Hour Podcast. We're back with another action-packed episode this week. We've got Nvidia earnings. What did that mean for the AI bubble? We're not sure. Kalshi. I don't know if you've heard of this. This is like a gambling on the actual real life markets. And things is beyond sports betting. It's everything. And then let's talk the Google Roundtable on AI. I was listening to that last night, and there was some wild stuff I'd love to get your take on. But let's start with Nvidia. What happened there with earnings?
Nvidia just announced their Q3 earnings, and there was a lot of tension in the market, a lot of trepidation around, hey, AI bubble, what's going to happen with Nvidia? People were kind of doing a bit of nail biting around that. But they crushed Q3 expectations, $57 billion in revenue. That's up 62% year over year, $1.30 per share versus like Wall Street's $1.26 estimates. And their Q4 guidance is $65 billion, which is also a beat for Wall Street. So despite all that, we saw a little pop like the day after, but it was short-lived. The market ended up down, which was not great. It's just a very jittery market right now.
Yeah.
But a few things that were kind of interesting from Jensen himself, right? He said, we're entering a virtuous cycle of AI. He said, AI is going everywhere. It's doing everything all at once. It's becoming ubiquitous. It's almost becoming like electricity. And this is one of the themes that we've talked about in prior pods. Also, just like very specifically relative to their product lines, their Blackwell chips are off the charts. I think that their cloud GPUs are completely sold out. And so, revenue coming from that segment is really strong. Now, we know it's coming from the hyperscalers. We know there's a circular nature, but ultimately the revenue is there. And this is an investing period, for the market. So things look good for Nvidia. People are still a bit jittery in the market. There's Michael Burry, the guy from the starting to short, saying that, they're inflating earnings by undercounting depreciation. And, Peter Thiel's fund dumped its entire $100 million stake in Nvidia. SoftBank unloaded about $5.8 billion worth of shares. So it's hard to know what the market is saying, but it's definitely a revolution period. And the question is, what are investors' appetite for when we're going to actually see the impact of these bets? How are you feeling, man? There's been a lot of since the last time we chatted, there's still a fair amount of thrash. So
yeah, it's up and down. I mean, part of me wonders, this part of the end of the year cleaning out your gains and losses, people just moving it up a little bit to prior to Thanksgiving, and that causing a little more thrash than normal. Because I know, end of the year, but a lot of people decide, I'm going to sell and take some gains and take some losses. Maybe that moved up because of this AI thing. And that caused even more thrashing than normal. But it's hard to tell. I really don't know. I know I've been a part of it as well, like buying and selling and cooling off and hearing things and not knowing. It's just yeah, you're right. We're just in a place that we just don't know. We're so early, and people are sort of overreacting to things, and we're seeing that in the market, it seems like.
Yeah, we talked about, from like a pure investing standpoint, we talked about this on other pods. At least I know that you do a little more individual investing. For me, I'm like, as the market's going up and down, it's been crazy.
Yes.
I'm going to invest in index funds and not lose too much sleep over it. If there's a downturn in the market or correction, for me, it's kind of like a buying opportunity. That being said, if we think about this period relative to like the 2000s, this is where I'd like to get some more of your,
Yeah.
thinking around that time and how analogous it seems. Even when the market took a huge dump in in that period, there was came
Yeah.
out of that, and a lot of
Yeah.
the infrastructure and a lot of like the kind of internet related infrastructure and companies that were able to survive that period are the tech conglomerates of today, a la the Amazons of the world. So there will definitely be some winners and losers. Do you think if there is some type of major correction that it will be as bad as the 2000 period, worse, better? Do
No,
you
I
have any
mean,
relative sense?
I think the big, the Googles and the Nvidias and all of those too big at this point, right? They're diversified within themselves. I'm talking Amazon, the big guys, but the others probably they're going to be a lot of fallout. There's going to be some that
Mm,
don't make it and some that make it huge, and I think that's just it's rinse and repeat. You look back. I think Warren Buffett used to talk about how what was it in the 30s, thousands of auto manufacturing companies, and just a couple made it out, but those are still here
yeah.
today and still really strong. Same airplane company, same deal, right? All these come into the space, and everybody places their bets, which is our next topic, and then you see what happens, and then things, mergers happen, acquisitions happen, companies come and go, and product innovations happen, and then a few are left standing. And I think
Yeah.
it's hard to tell though with this one though. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
pretend to.
If you're right now, this has got to be the hardest time to
Yeah,
invest ever,
because you
right?
don't
Like,
know. Like it's
how are you
under the
picking
covers.
winners?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
under the covers with this AI, and we don't know where the innovation is going to happen. And you hear these things that are going to drive exponential hockey growth, and who's going to get to it first. Yeah, it's really tricky, and the more I listen to it, the more confused I am, if I'm being honest. And yes, I do pick stocks, because I just have a book of my, I'm older than you, so I'm closer to, a little bit closer to retirement. So I have a chunk that is just a risky portfolio that I'm willing to roll the dice on, and I just use to pick stocks. And um, I keep hearing AI is taking over everyone's job. AI is going to do this and that. So I just do the research and be like, all right, I'm going to diversify within AI within my little crazy fund, and ride the wave. And it's a forcing function for us to be on top of things, and research and all of that. So it's been fun to get in. Yeah, to say I don't know what I'm doing is an understatement.
Fair enough. Fair enough. But again, none of this is investment advice. I
Yeah,
feel like we got to keep
clearly.
saying that so we don't get. Um, Maybe before we lean into the next topic, which is around kind of like predictions and betting a
Yep.
bit, if you had to make kind of you had $100,000 and you had to put it into one company to survive this period, like if there is a bit of a bust that comes along with this boom, which one would it be and why?
I'm gonna have to go two. Actually, I can't do one. I would do
All right.
Amazon, Tesla. Those are the two. I would split it right down the middle because,
Okay.
like I said, in terms of like companies that are diversified within themselves, I like those two because they have obviously AWS. We were both at Twitch. We know the power and the way they think 5 years out. I think there's real value there for them to stay ahead. And then Tesla, just they continue to shock people with the things they're doing and the vision of I mean, I listened to the talk, and then I've listened to the satellites and the phones, and the combination of SpaceX and floating cars, and like he's just out there. And I would think he's come up with something again. Like if I'm going to roll the dice, I'm probably going to go those two. How about you?
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
I think if I had 100K, I'm putting it into Microsoft. I just really like their CEO. I think he has a combination of really strong technical ability and product sense, as well as the ability to kind of make big bets, even with a company that size. You got to think about when they had made that initial investment in OpenAI, right? Like buy essentially
Yeah,
51% of the company. They had some OpenAI had some traction, but was not nearly as ubiquitous or
I,
successful as it was now. And I think it takes, I think that's the kind of leadership that you need, in this age. Betting on it's kind of hard to see where the tech is going. I'm kind of betting on leadership, and I think that if they still got Satya at the helm, that puts
I
them in
like
a good
that.
place. You know,
Yeah.
I'm the caveat is I worked at Microsoft. Maybe somewhat biased. It was very early on in my career. It was a different leader, but relative to the moves that they're seeing now, I place my bet there.
It is impressive, though. I mean, when I was younger, Bill Gates was and then it was Bezos, but it was Bill Gates. Everybody talked about being Bill Gates, and then to have them a successor also be an innovative and that's amazing, right? Like
Yeah.
similar to Apple with Jobs going to Cook and Cook so incredibly successful and scaling. It's a it's impressive. It is very impressive what has happened and transpired in those companies.
Yeah. So let's get into something for our arts out there.
Yeah,
So
market,
in all seriousness, Kalshi and their recent $1 billion raise. So for
right?
those of you unfamiliar with them, it's a prediction market platform. They just raised $1 billion at an $11 billion. Their primary competitor is Kalshi is Polymarket. Polymarket is trying to raise like between 12 and 15 billion just after raising their own 1 billion at an $8 billion valuation. This is a space. There's a lot of heat, a lot of momentum being here. The things why the prediction markets have exploded are one of them is people just like betting on a lot of stuff. To be real, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, if you can, and you just some people like betting on a lot of stuff, and the fact that that is now allowed and regulated, like it's just kind of blown up the market there. And the other piece is that I think is really interesting. If you look at the recent New York mayoral election, right, which had kind of like the first type that these prediction markets use were kind of leveraged as like mainstream scoring for how the election was going to play out.
Right.
Uh, they both accurately selected who was going to win. They become more of a signal, and this was not necessarily the case. I mean, a lot of polls and other traditional predictors have not done well in the past. You think about the
Right.
presidential election with Trump, et cetera. So it's also providing a new way for people to kind of understand consumer sentiment, which I think is really interesting. But what do you think about this overall trend? Is it good? Is it bad? Have you participated?
I mean, I love gambling. I'll just caveat that. It's the me that just is always gambling. But I looked into it. I stopped the registration when they needed my social security number. That part still kind of irked me a little bit. Maybe that's dating me. But when I saw that, I'm like, maybe I'll pause on the social security for a prediction market. The sort of gamification of everything has been at play. I'm into collectibles,
Yeah.
And all the card market is hot as ever. Kevin O'Leary's in it. That predominantly all gambling, right? It's like you buy a blind box. You don't know what's in it. You crack it open. You have an expensive card in there. Maybe you don't. Well, the boo boo, that craze also blind boxes. You don't know what you're getting. FanDuel and all the sports betting. And, yeah, all of those are just really capitalizing on the dopamine of winning. And I think it's what's really scary is these things. If you're really good at this, they're not going to let you win, right? They're gonna I don't want to say pump the brakes on it, but if you're really good at calling sports betting, most of them will pump your brakes and not allow you to bet a lot. So then you have a cap on what you can make, but no cap on what you can lose. And that's pretty scary, right? Like for someone who's terrible at it and just loses all day long, they're happy to take your money. But somebody who actually knows what they're doing, they're going to limit the amount you can bet. So I think overall, not good. I think, and it's ripe for, we've seen these scandals in the NBA with, Terry Rozier and Kevin Porter Jr. and these other, whatever. There's been a bunch of these little bets of guys cooking the books a little bit, and this is ripe for opportunity again because I'm looking at it now. Kalshi's homepage is will Bitcoin how low will it go this year, and you can bet on that. The Labubu craze. What is the price on StockX going to get to? What is the Fed decision in 2025? These are all things you can bet on in Kalshi.
Yeah. Even Rotten Tomato scores, like tell who's going to be the next time person of the year. It's literally everything.
Everything. It's really cool though. It's like fun. And I love the concept of it, but it's also pretty scary because like we are already going down a path of like, dopamine hits on TikTok in short form, and now you're betting. Like everything is turning us into addicts, and that's
Yeah.
scary. Like both of us have kids. Like, do you want your kids gambling on every single thing they can do? That seems not great. Like,
The way that I think about this is I think of it as kind of analogous to social media. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of addictive aspects of how of like product design and just putting you in this kind of infinite loop of content and kind of brain rewiring. Now there you're sucking your time and I don't know, maybe some brain cells too. But on the prediction market piece, if you just kind of like are just betting on everything all the time, it's
yeah,
probably also not good activity. Again, teach their own. I'm not trying to prescribe like this moralistic view on
no,
if it's right
totally.
versus wrong necessarily, but it just makes me a bit that if you think of like what's going on generally in the macroeconomic environment with all this job loss and uncertainty and tariffs and a lot of kind of the market being super volatile, and then you also got people gambling. Like if one card falls, it's going to be really bad for
Yeah,
a lot of people. So
agreed.
I just feel like with anything, try to, I don't know, have a good friend around who can help you limit
Yeah,
time you're spending on some of these platforms. If that, but
agreed.
it does give me a little, it does give me a little anxiety that all of these, all these things are happening at the same time.
I'm a believer in allowing people to decide for themselves, like holistically. It's right. You should allow people to, limit themselves with anything, food, uh, using your devices and phones and
For
all of that.
adults, for
Yeah, for
adults.
adults, it
Yeah,
seems
yeah.
totally okay. But then when you really step back and like you said, you unleash all these things at once, then it is because our education system, let's keep it real, isn't great, and a lot of these people are going to have to learn by doing, and that's a lot of people going through the ropes and finding their limits on things and maybe hitting rock bottom, which is
Yeah.
not what you want to see. Like not everyone is going to be fortunate enough to figure it out in time. Others are going to get sucked into this world and may have a really tough time getting out, which is unfortunate.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
we'll see. We'll see how this plays out. It's definitely a new, really big emerging now. There's a lot of venture dollars going into these companies.
yeah.
We'll see. We'll see how it plays out. But
I
let's
wonder how they
add
justify.
some caution.
Yeah, I'm curious how they justify it into like as an investment. Like, oh yeah, this is great. We're gonna make a killing, or like, I just I'm not sure.
100%. It's that. 100%. It's let's look at let's look at this company. Let's look at the space. Let's look at the total addressable market and its margins and
So,
their valuation now. Okay, looks good. Let's invest.
yeah,
You
that's
know.
scary, right? There's part of it is like, what do you do? Maybe that's just because we have kids and where we are, but it's like, what is your imprint going to be on the world? And if it's like, I created this thing where everyone can gamble on everything, it just seems odd, but I get it.
Yeah. Maybe one last piece on this, which is, and I think this is why is so important for a lot. It's hard with the manipulation that goes in the markets,
Yeah,
and you have these billionaires and trillionaires who are kind of pulling the strings. I think for a lot of average everyday consumers, well, what do I have? What do I have at my disposal to make asymmetric bets? If I'm an accredited investor, where I can do, angel investing and invest in these startups, et cetera, and be more in the private markets, right? Then you have access to platforms like Kalshi and crypto and that. And it can definitely get out of hand, but I also can understand wanting access to asymmetric opportunities to build wealth because otherwise you just kind of live in the day-to-day grind and it's hard
it
to
is.
escape from that.
It is. It is very hard. A wild one. I'm not sure where we're from there, but it's a scary world we live in at this moment. We're gonna have to all fight through it. Have any comments below? Leave them below. I'd love to hear how their plans are or their thoughts on this because it is a one.
Yeah. But
Stop it.
yeah,
Google.
Google. Yeah, I would love to hear your down because you listened to the whole 3 hour
Yeah, I
roundtable. So I'm
listened to
very
the
interested
whole
to hear your
roundtable,
perspective. Yeah.
and I think the really cool things that they talked about were sort of like medical advancements. There was talk about an example they gave was, hey, someone went and edit a virus and spread it to everyone, similar to COVID, make it more lethal, make it more viral, and that wouldn't cost much. But there was talks about, hey, the good guys will also have AI, and the good guys will be, and they'll be building tools. And the example they gave was like, TSA at the airports, train stations, subways. They're going to be grabbing the air, out of. They're going to be testing the air in real time for viruses, and AI is going to be doing that in the back end and deciding, hey, here are all the viruses I'm detecting, and so if something new pops up, they'll be able to figure it out away and pinpoint where it came from, where it's traveling to, and then the idea being, imagine somebody's traveling across the country, getting on a plane, and they have a new virus. By the time they land, AI will have figured out a vaccine, figured out the quarantine, got everybody together, and decided here's an action plan. And I thought that was really refreshing to hear, right? Like, you always hear about all the downside of these things, but also like, hey, AI is going to be helping to mitigate that crazy virality of said a future COVID, a future virus that goes. I thought it was interesting that they said these viruses can only travel as fast as an airplane, where AI can travel much faster, right? And so I thought that was really cool to hear that, and conceptually, like, yeah, somebody tries to spread a virus and put it on and get on the plane, and if you have these mechanisms in place, can catch them, and in a world where AI and all that is out there, it'll be much harder to spread, as opposed to saying it's much easier. So I thought that was interesting. Like, those are the advancements that I thought were really fascinating. Go ahead.
I'm about, and just to make sure I'm understanding this in terms of the detection piece, kind of the guardrails that are there, one, but then also kind of like privacy
Yeah. Well,
concerns. So like,
they
how do
talk
they get, like, how do they get access to that data? And we live in an environment now where the CDC is saying, oh, vaccine is giving people autism and things like that. And it's
right.
like,
No,
so
they
how do we
about
square
that.
that with
And
our
it was
future?
like TSA. When you go to an airport, you're really giving up your privacy, especially TSA and pre-check. So
Mhm.
all of the things are in place. They can. I mean, if you're breathing air, they can take that and test it, and they may not detect it to the person. Like, you can, if it's in entrances and you're walking through and they're testing everything around you, and you have to breathe, and they can grab that air and they can test it. So I think their thought was like, we have the mechanisms, we'll have the mechanisms and the technology available to grab this and at least capture viruses and things that are spreading around, and triangulate it to planes and to area, to do. It makes sense when you think about it that way, right? You're gonna, at your terminal, at your gate, everybody that's getting on as you go through, you're gonna be able to grab that air as everyone's breathing, and maybe there is even a test where you've been into something, and then it captures each person. Like, you could see where that's possible. Planes and international travel, like, you're giving up your privacy.
Yeah, I just
Give
wonder.
everything.
I think you're right. I'm just wondering. People just seem more and more apprehensive around these things. So I'm wondering what kind of pushback there will be when those systems are in place, and
Yeah,
how far we'll go with that. Because it makes sense from a general kind of like health perspective, countrywide health perspective, but at the same time, I feel like there are all those elements of society where people are just becoming less and less trustworthy. And so
yes,
how do you
yeah.
actually, how do you execute it?
Well, what if you have a choice? I mean, it's like, hey,
Well, and that's the piece, right? It's
you're
if
going,
in
you're
order
going,
for you to do
you're
these things, you're just not going to have a choice.
yeah. If
And
you
that
want,
seems very much like kind of like China
yeah, it's
and
like, hey, if you're
what
gonna
they're doing.
travel, you're coming to whatever country, you got to give a test, breath, I don't know what you would call it. That doesn't out of this world. Like, we're already, lifting up our arms and letting them scan every orifice. It seems like you're just one more thing. You're one more step away from giving your breath. It does feel scary, though. Like it's another like, well, all right, we might as well just cotton swab and give them our DNA at that point.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, that's a world that we're probably by their timelines, 5, 10 years, we're gonna be seeing this. Like it's gonna be activated. Maybe not in a lot of places,
Hmm.
bigger airports and things. Like they're ready. They're building this technology out, which is kind of wild. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, they're all. It's gonna be whack a mole, obviously, right? But like having the capability to do this is really fascinating.
Anything else that came out of the roundtable? I know the medical piece was interesting.
Yeah,
Anything else that
they had a
stuck out to you?
bunch of medical talk, robotics, of course. Again, they talked about robotics and the future of that, and solar being able to power a lot of these, and like AI going into space was another thing, and how it would be much more efficient. We joked about it in the past of like who should terraform Mars. It should be the AI and the robots, and that sounds like very true. Like, yeah, that is probably makes the most sense. I think there was a question of data centers and these chips. Well, most of in the actual diameter all around cooling. And if you're putting it in space where there's naturally a lot of coolant, you can like reduce the size of these data centers
Hmm.
by 95%. So if you're talking about putting a data center on Mars, it would require 5% of the time and space, which makes it easier to transport it out. Things
Right.
are like crazy to think about. Like we could actually have data centers on another planet, like Mars, on the surface, if we're going to live underneath the surface of which
Wow.
wild. There are really smart people out there about this stuff.
I
I don't have time to think about that stuff.
was about to say it is fascinating. Definitely need to link that in the in the show notes. Maybe before we close, just briefly, Google, they had a great week as well with the
Yes.
release of Gemini 3. I think it released a few days after GPT 5.1. It's gotten really strong reviews. You've
Yeah.
got LM Arena, which allows it to kind of test functionality of each model
Yeah.
against the other models that are out there. I think it's like number one Element Arena right now. They're doing some agentic focus on, they have like a big agentic focus and push now, as well as anti-gravity, which is their new kind of AI workplace. So they seem to be firing, and obviously they also have a huge user base. They have a tremendous amount of
Yeah,
distribution. So not that
absolutely.
I was counting them out of the race, but it just didn't feel like they were doing all the things to. You would think that just Google would just snap their fingers and win within the space, and that hasn't happened. But it seems like it's slowly,
Totally happening.
slowly happening.
Yeah, I think
And
they had a note. Someone, how do you to get this out there in the world? And their answer was, we don't need to get it out there in the world. The world comes to us, and we're going to showcase it, which I thought was such a great answer for
hmm,
Google. Like we're gonna integrate this into all the things that already exist. We're coming to Google and coming to Gmail and coming to all of these places. We're gonna integrate AI and show them. And the agentic stuff was cool, where it's like you give it a task and it'll go out. And I think the game was, I'm booking travel. I'm trying to find the cheapest flight to this. I'm looking for a beach location. This is my budget. This is where I want to be. Da, 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 and this is my timeline. And it'll go out there and grab it and give you options, and it can book it all for you. Really cool stuff. Really amazing to think where the Google Assistant has gone, where it can actually, you know, you can give it very specific tasks and it can go and execute it. Pretty neat.
yeah.
I haven't tried it yet. It sounds great. I feel like it put me on the wrong flight, but
Like that's the thing. Like a lot of agentic stuff, you're like, okay, it's cool. Maybe a little bit. How well does it actually work? How ubiquitous will the use cases be, and on what timeline? But um, all to kind of point back to maybe the first topic, which is around kind of investment in AI
yeah,
overall,
right,
and infrastructure building now, and the tooling, and maybe by Q1, Q2 next year, we'll really see the impact. I think that's kind of the known unknown right now, which how much value outside of Nvidia, which is just selling all the GPUs to these
right,
companies. Like when
right.
do you start seeing in the bottom lines of kind of the Googles, Amazons, and Microsofts?
Yeah, I don't like the idea of in like everyone waiting on Nvidia's earnings, like just seems really scary to me that
Yeah.
so many industries are now reliant on one company and how it's doing that
Yeah.
it makes me nervous. Like put it lightly, right? You've got all of every industry now pending one manufacturer of these chips. Like it's crazy. I can't
Yeah.
remember any like one company dominating the space. You know, back in the day, Microsoft was big, but it wasn't like this. It wasn't like, all right, every possible domino could fall because of Nvidia's earnings. That's
Yeah.
scary. Even as great as it was, it still hurt us.
Yeah.
Right? Wild to think about.
So we'll have to see. We'll have to see. It feels like a week.
Every week.
There's a new big story around that. We'll be here to
Well,
tell
next
those
earnings
stories.
in what time now? We'll see. We'll
Yeah.
see how the markets respond and how other companies sort of use this to their advantage.
Yeah, man.
Nothing else?
Another
Good.
another week.
All right.
I think that's all. We'll see Phil next week. I know it's the holiday.
Yeah.
We may or may not, but we'll
Happy
catch y'all
Thanksgiving,
soon.
and
Yeah,
we'll
Thanksgiving,
talk
everybody.